Test, can you hear me now?
You hadn't pushed your button now.
Yeah, I did. Just didn't light up. Anyone that would like to address anything in the road plan? There being none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. So moved by Councilmember Gross and second by Councilmember Honeycutt. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, this meeting is adjourned. Do we want to wait 10 more minutes? Okay. We'll have the budget hearing meeting momentarily.
Well, it flows off of Leslie. It gathers behind our house, too.
You have a big pond in your yard?
Yeah. Not right now, but we did earlier. Mosquitoes and basement bugs.
Is there not anything, have you talked to her?
I was kidding. I said that they actually have worked on something. Working on the curb a little and the drainage a little. But I don't, the system just can't handle it, I guess, because it'll go right over the line and just, there's a creek, well, see, there's a kind of a creek down at the very end.
Can't really.
This is budget hearing for the 2015-2016 fiscal year budget. Be happy to entertain any questions that anyone might have about that budget. We have Joe LaScala here, the finance officer for the city of Glasgow, that can answer anything that you might throw at him. So, any questions?
Could you discuss the new fire substation, where that funding is currently, please?
That funding is in the works. That, as you know, is a USDA low-interest loan, no-interest loan, zero-interest loan. The application, we've actually been approved, I believe, for that. Now we're following up with the supplementary paperwork to get that completed. I can't remember the time frame. I've got the information downstairs, but I can't remember that when those dates are. But
It does have a timeline, a deadline to that
yes,
loan.
yes, we have to, finish that paperwork, have that in, then we've got 60 days from that point, something to actually take, I can't remember the number of days, Wendell, but a certain amount of days to take possession of that money and begin that project, so, yes.
If no one else wants to talk, I'll say a few things.
Okay.
I'm a budget person anyway. Here in Glasgow and Barron County, we're very fortunate that the county government and city governments always had a long history of working together. I just want to caution the council that we need to be careful in what we do. Splitting costs 50-50 sounds fair on the surface. I'm not always sure that's right. If you split costs 50-50, that means a person living in the city, per taxpayer or per person, the tax dollars are 4 times what it is for a county residents. I think that's something we need to look at going forward. Like the animal control is a good example. That's really supposed to be county. I really think the city should kick in on that. If you look at the budget, we're kicking in just slightly over half of that budget. I'm not sure that's right. Maybe it's fair, but to me personally, it doesn't sound exactly right. Another example would be the ambulance service, where the city and the county contribute the same amount of dollars each year. On the surface, again, it appears fair that we do 50-50, but when you consider me as a resident in the city, I'm paying 4 times what I would pay if I lived in the county in taxpayer dollars for that service per person. Maybe that's not fair. And the ambulance service is a growing budget item. And, we, met with the fiscal court over a year ago, maybe over 2 years ago, and asked them to have a consultant come evaluate the ambulance service and the billing service. I honestly don't. It is the very best billing service and the very best, most efficiently run ambulance service in the United States, or if it's not. And I think for the amount of money we're spending, we should be able to have that answered. And with the fiscal court went with us to ask for that, those are the 2 entities that provide over half of their funding. I would expect a little more than what they've done so far. I know you've told me privately they're working on that, and I think they should continue, and I hope they are taking their time because they're hiring someone super to do it, because that's what it deserves. But we should look at that funding. Another item that I really think we need to look at.
Let me address just a couple of things there quickly, and Judge Hale's here to address this if you'd like to, but you're correct. The ambulance service is a tremendous, it's a costly service for city and county to provide. In their budget this year, if I'm not mistaken, Judge, do you remember their actual budget and the deficit actually shrank from last year to this? So we're in the right direction there. Certainly we feel like we have some more gains that can be made there. So we are moving in the right direction as far as the overall cost of that. Second of which, just as an update, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school, we are proceeding with that consultant that you talked about. We've got a couple of folks that are going to get in and take an evaluation of that as overall. As you mentioned, that ambulance board, 2 years ago maybe, agreed to seek out a consultant to help us determine if we were running that in the most efficient way, and it's just been difficult trying to find somebody that does that. But actually, as it turns out, I think there may be in the next month, 6 weeks, we should hear a little bit more about that. So,
And like I said, it may be the best one and the best building service in the whole United States. I don't know, but I think we should find out. The last thing I think we need to look at as a council and as a group is the dispatch center funding. Back when that was started, the 911 center, we had police dispatchers, we had fire department dispatchers, and Daddy told the county, said, no, we'll pay for all of it. And we're still paying for all of it. It's grown considerably. I think we ought to look at, I'm not saying the county should step in and pay half of it immediately, but I think over a period of time, we need to look at going to something like that, or look at billing for dispatches to whoever it's dispatched to. We need to do to keep that from growing too much, because if you look at the budget today and you say, well, if I had 200, 300, or 400,000 more, I could really do some good. Think of what I could do with attracting industry, improving the quality of life, giving raises, just doing a lot of good works. But you need that consistent revenue stream, not a one-time shot. And if we could figure out a better way to share some of these expenses or reduce some, we could easily have that each year. Thank you.
Wendell, it's almost as if we scripted this, and I know for everybody here that's not the case, but Judge Hale and myself and the ambulance board have actually been in discussions about dispatch centers, speaking about the fact that the city pays all those dispatchers, even though they're actually employed by different agencies. So those things are in discussion. They're, all of those things are the result of interlocal agreements that were drafted several years ago, and things have obviously changed in recent times. So we're actually looking at those things as we speak. So some very good points that you bring up. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions about the budget? Being none, I'll entertain a motion by Councilmember Witcher, and second.
Second.
Councilmember Gross. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed. The meeting is adjourned. if you would, join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and in lieu of our prayer tonight, I would ask that you join me in a moment of silence in honor of our fellow council member, Sheila Oliver, who passed away on May 29th. If you would, please. Thank you. If you would be seated, clerk, call the roll, please.
Witcher. Here. Lowry. Here. Honeycutt. Here. Trigg. Here. Here. Odom Camp. Here. Gross.
Here.
Dickinson. Here. Neal. Here. Booker.
Here.
You have 10 present. Mr. Narcisse absent.
Thank you. You have in your packet the minutes from the 5/11 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept those to record. Second. Councilmember Olenkamp. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. You also have the minutes from the specially called meeting on the 12th day of May. I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll make the motion.
Made by Councilmember Hammer and second. Councilmember Neal. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next on your agenda, we had Michaela Humphrey, who was going to address the council pertaining to the Ride for Liberty, but I do not see Mrs. Humphrey here, so we will move on. The next item on your agenda is the second reading of an ordinance pertaining to the rebate and retention by D&B trucks.
That whereas the City of Glasgow, Kentucky has adopted an occupational license fee ordinance providing for an license fee of 1.5% on certain wages paid to employees in the City of Glasgow. Whereas D&B Trucks and Equipment Sales has made an application and been approved for certain benefits and incentives available to it under the Kentucky Business Investment Act via the Kentucky Economic Development Cabinet, and as a result of its commitment to expand and create 50 new jobs and investments in Glasgow. Whereas the City Council of Glasgow is willing, as one of the incentives, to permit the retention by D&B of 1% of the 1.5% occupational tax revenues to be paid by employees of said company for new employees related to the current expansion, recognizing that said company's economic presence in the city enhances the equity of Glasgow. And whereas the City Council wishes to demonstrate its willingness to accept the measure of retention of said payment or reduction by said company as described above, now therefore be it hereby ordained by the city as follows. Section 1, the city does take notice of the application of D&B for benefits and incentives available to said company under the Kentucky Business Act, including application by the company for retention of or rebate to said company of 1% of the 1.5% occupational tax revenues. Section 2, that the approval herein granted is subject to said company receiving final approval of its application and meeting all terms and conditions of its eligibility for said benefits under the Kentucky Business Investment Act. Section 3, that the approval herein granted is subject further to the annexation of the real estate on which said company's business is located at or near the intersection of the Cumberland Parkway and the Burkesville Road into the city limits of Glasgow. Section 4, that the City of Glasgow, Kentucky does hereby ordain that for 10 years subsequent to the activation date, as that defined in the agreement that follows the Kentucky Business Investment Program by and among the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority, D&B, and the Glasgow Barron County Industrial Development and Economic Authority, D&B Trucks and Equipment Sales shall be entitled to retain or to have rebated to it 1% of the 1.5% occupational license fee, which would otherwise new employees from their respective salaries and wages. This 1% retention or rebate shall not apply to existing employees or other income or net profits of said company, and shall only apply to the occupational license fees on wages paid to the employees in the city of Glasgow, sometimes otherwise referred to as payroll tax. Section 4, this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
Having heard the ordinance, I'll entertain a motion to approve. By Councilmember Neal, and second, Councilmember Witcher. All in favor signify, or excuse me, this will be in the second reading, will be a roll call vote.
Booker,
Yes.
Neal. Yes. Dickinson. Yes. Norris, I'm sorry, Mr. Norris is absent. Gross.
Yes.
Odenkamp. Yes. Hammer.
Yes.
Honeycutt.
Yes.
Trigg. Yes. Lowry.
Yes.
Witcher. Yes. You have 10 yes.
The motion carries. Next on your agenda is the first reading of an ordinance, and this is the budget ordinance. Before we get into that, I just want to kind of hit some of the highlights of this year's budget. First, I want to start by thanking and recognizing those finance committee members that were a huge part of this budget this year. Those are Councilmember Gross, Councilmember Dickinson, Councilmember Trigg, Councilmember Lowry, and then also Councilmember Oliver. I want to thank you all very much for your work. All of these members spent some time with the group doing various activities of the budget. I also want to thank the department heads for that. Was a long process. They all worked very diligently, I think, to maximize our use of our tax dollars. And I also want to thank Joe and Stephanie, City Treasurer and the Finance Officer, for the work that they put into this. As we said, just to give some highlights, our expenses this year were actually $370,000 higher than last year's expenses, but you've got to take into consideration that we had over $380,000 in increased insurance expenses. We had a 19.9% increase in our health insurance premiums, and yet our overall budget only went up $370,000. So we did a tremendous job, I think, in offsetting those increases in our health insurance premiums. Basically, we've got $13,004,000 in spending and $13,006,000 in revenue. So basically, a balanced budget. There are a couple of large projects that are going to require funding out of this budget that will take place this year. They've been in the works for a while. The first of those is the methane generator project. We will actually be paying some expenses out of this budget for that project this year, as well as the first leg of our tap grant, or our bicycle trail, will be upcoming as well. As we mentioned earlier, the third fire station, or the substation, is also included in this budget, and that was $550,000, if I'm not mistaken. Another large expense in this year's budget. So, again, excellent work, I think, by the department heads, the finance department, and the finance committee to pull this thing together. So I want to, again, express my appreciation to all of you for the hard work there. Now, if you would read that, please.
Whereas an annual budget proposal has been prepared and delivered to the City Council, and whereas the City Council has reviewed said budget proposal and made necessary modifications, now therefore be it hereby ordained by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, that the annual budget for fiscal year 7/1/2015 and ending June 30, 2016 is hereby adopted as follows. And what I will do is there are 15 areas that go into the general fund. The estimated revenue total for those 15 areas is $13,750,000. $6,931. The total estimated expenses for those 15 general fund areas is $13,004,930. From last year is $4,198,630. So the total estimated fund balance in the general fund in 2016 is $4,200,631. Then you have the Plaza Fund with a carryover from last year of $57,932. Estimated revenue for the upcoming year of $318,000. Estimated expenses of $289,274, leaving an estimated fund balance at the end of this upcoming fiscal year of $86,658. The next fund is the Stormwater Fund with a carryover of $434,368. Revenues at $339,600, estimated expenses $338,466, with a fund balance at the end of the year of $435,499. The next fund is the Municipal Road Aid Fund, carry forward of $371,696, estimate of $341,000, estimated expenses $342,610, leaving a fund balance of $370,086 at the end of the next fiscal year. The next fund is the Revolving Loan Fund with an estimated carryover of $292,900. Estimated revenues from that fund, expenses of $250,000 with a fund balance estimated at $42,905. The next fund is the Police and Fire Fund, which we typically call the CLEF Fund. The carryover from last year would be $46,590. For this coming year, $308,057, same in expenses, leaving an estimated fund balance of $46,590. The next fund is the Glasgow Economic Development Loan Fund with a carryover from last year, June of 2015, of $966,977. Estimated revenue of $700. No estimated expenses for the coming year, therefore leaving an estimated fund balance of $967,677. The next fund is the Municipal Cemetery Fund, the carryover from June 2015 of $98,806. Estimated revenues, $271,000. Estimated expenses, $295,032, with an estimated fund balance at the end of the year of $74,774. The next fund is the Perpetual Upkeep Fund, carryover of $493,955, estimated revenues of $14,000, estimated expenses $5,500, with the fund balance estimated at $502,455 at the end of the year. The next fund is the Sanitation Landfill Fund, estimated carryovers of $5,180,185, estimated revenues $2,928,500, estimated expenses $2,849,230, with an estimated fund balance at the end of the year of $5,259,455. The Closure Fund with carryovers from June 2015 of $4,439,154. Estimated revenue for this year, $10,700. Zero estimated expenses for the coming year, therefore leaving an estimated fund balance of $4,449,854 at the coming fiscal year. The estimated year-end balances, therefore, when you take into account all funds, the carryover would be $16,581,195. Estimated revenues, $17,538,488. Estimated expenses, $17,683,000, $1,099,099, and then an estimated fund balance at the end of the fiscal year of $16,436,584. This ordinance shall take effect as of July 1, 2015, according to passage and publication according to law. A copy of this information, proposed budget, and additional background materials are available for inspection at City Hall during normal working hours.
Having heard the first reading, I'll entertain a motion.
Point of order. I don't think a recommendation from committee requires a motion.
Councilman, I think the typical what has been in the past to approve it on first reading. Point well taken, but I think just as customary, the Finance Committee Chair has typically made that motion as the recommendation for the committee.
That being the case, I'll second it.
Thank you. You have a first by Councilmember Gross and a second by Councilmember Dickinson. All in favor, signify.
The stormwater fees, the billing that we send out to everyone each year, now this last billing was the last billing, is that correct?
No, I believe we have one more, yes.
Okay, but it is important to remember that does expire. It was for certain projects that the EPA wanted us, and I know April's addressed us before saying that we're gone from the life in stock to a golden child as far as the EPA is concerned. I think it's been well worth it, very unpopular, but well worth the effort to contribute towards the citizens' well-being in the city.
You're absolutely right, Councilmember Honeycutt, and we will have department will address that at the future time and give us a review of those projects that have taken place. And the other part of this that continues to loom is the New Year's permit by the EPA. We're not exactly sure what will be required of us under the EPA's new permit, so we're waiting to see. We do believe that there's going to be a large increase in the monitoring that will have to be done as far as our stormwater outfalls. What exactly that's going to look like, we're not yet sure of, so we'll know that in the coming weeks, months, maybe April? Weeks, hopefully, and we'll have a better idea as to what that will cost us and the necessity of that stormwater fund. So you're absolutely right, there is a sunset on that, but I believe we have one more billing cycle until that sunset comes along. So, any other discussion?
Mayor, I just want to say it is a recommendation of the Finance Committee to approve this budget.
Thank you. Councilmember Committee, we do appreciate that.
I think there's a lot to like in this budget, chief among which is the fact that it's balanced, and I want to commend the mayor as well as his staff on this. There's some things I don't really care about. Chief among those is the fact that there's no raise for our employees. I feel like their real income is going backwards. I disagree with Councilmember Honeycutt and the mayor. I don't think the stormwater fee is necessary, and I look forward to offering a motion to repeal that at some future date. Now, having said that, let me also hasten to add that I'm going to vote for this budget, and I think it's balanced, and it's the first balanced budget we've seen in a while.
Thank you. Just to quickly address the increase, you're exactly right. We did not have any salary increase, wage increase for the employees of the city, but as I say, we had a 19.9% increase in health insurance premiums that the city absorbed rather than pass on. So in one respect, you could look at that as an increase. It's a stretch, but not a stretch, but it's just a different way of looking at that. So any other discussion? We have a first and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ordinance passes. Next on the agenda, we have an ordinance, actually a housekeeping ordinance, if you will, to amend this year's budget to take into consideration some funds that need to be moved. We have Joe LaScala here that can address those. Do we want to go ahead and do that before we read that?
Sure.
Joe, if you would, step up to the microphone, which is right here, front and center, and he can identify for those of you on the council and those of you watching on TV what these are. But again, these are pretty much just housekeeping issues.
Budget amendments to the 2014-15 budget. First being the city of Blackburn was awarded a $40,000 grant. Federal grant passing through the state of Kentucky for an emergency generator for the police department building. It was a zero match grant. It's a reimbursable grant. It simply means we have to spend the money for it, and then we will get reimbursed by the grant. My understanding is that the generator has been shipped and the amendment is simply showing that grant, taking the revenue into the appropriate revenue accounts for the police department, and showing, appropriating money, showing it going through the proper expense account for the police department. One we applied for and we received a grant from the Department of Local Governments in the amount of $18,729 for the Recreation Department. This was a federal grant. It was also reimbursable with a 20% match. The grant was used for repairs to Weldon Park and to renovate the trailhead at Beaver from the walking trail to the parking lot, which includes blacktop. And most of this work has been completed. And again, it's showing the grant coming into the revenue account and being expended through the expense accounts for the Recreation Department. But we also applied for and were awarded a grant. And this was for the Transit Department. It was a federal grant which also passed through the state of Kentucky in the amount of $23,267. 80% of that was a federal grant, 20% was from the state of Kentucky. It is also reimbursable. This is actually, I believe, a carry over from the 13-14 grant we built bus shelters, and I think there was money left over that we actually tried to give back to the state, and they would not allow us to give it back. So we are, I guess we built a couple more bus shelters, 3 more. And again, this is showing the revenue going into the expenses coming out of the expense account. And then Section 7, we are appropriating from the unappropriated general fund $6,000 for the animal control. This was simply in excess of health insurance expenses, claims to be exact. The claims were higher than we budgeted for. And finally, Section 8, we are appropriating from the unappropriated general fund $23,500, and this we had to replace an air handler in one of the AC units at the cultural center, and also we made significant repairs to both the other HVAC units.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions before we have the first reading of that ordinance? Thank you, Joe.
I'll try to summarize this because Mr. LaScala has already gone over many of the details. Be it hereby ordained by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky, that the annual budget for fiscal year July 1, 2014 through 6/30/2015 is hereby amended as follows. Section 1, we receive a Kentucky Homeland Security grant in the amount specified to be moved into the police department specified. Section 2, that same amount is moved into the technical equipment account. for emergency generator. Section 3, we receive a trails grant in the amount specified into the Parks and Recreation Department federal monies account, and then that same amount in Section 4 is then moved into the improvements account for the recreational trails. Section 5, the livability grant that Joe spoke about of $23,267 is moved into the Transit Department account number, and then that is broken out separately in two different accounts as specified. Section 6, there's hereby appropriated into the unappropriated general fund that same amount for the Transit Department buildings account number for the bus shelter project grant. Section 7, the appropriation from the unappropriated general fund of $6,000 to the animal control account for insurance services. And lastly, there is hereby appropriated from the unappropriated general fund $23,500 to go to the South Central Kentucky Cultural Center maintenance account for the repairs that Mr. LaScala spoke about. This ordinance shall take effect upon its passage and publication according to law.
Having heard the reading, do I hear a motion to? So moved by Councilmember Gross, and second? Councilmember Oldenkamp? Lowry. All in favor, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? And the motion carries. Next on your agenda, we have a resolution declaring 33 acres as surplus. This is property, if you're not familiar, that is in the IDEA Industrial Park on the south side of town. And if you are aware, former Mayor Honeycutt developed that property into a residential subdivision there. All of the lots have been sold. There are, however, others that are interested in this piece of property and continuing that development. So it's my desire to declare this surplus so that can be sold and someone can develop it rather than have that lay there and be on the city's books.
That whereas the City of Glasgow currently owns 33.810 acres off Hume Way, which is adjacent to the Tartan Glen subdivision, and a copy of the legal description and plat for that subject property is attached as Exhibit A. Whereas the city has no further legitimate use for the real property and the city deems it surplus and not needed for its operation of city government. The public interest for the aforementioned real property to be sold pursuant to law. Now, therefore, in light of the foregoing, it is hereby resolved by the City of Glasgow, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, that the 33.810 acres off Hume Way, which is adjacent to the Tartan Glen subdivision, as described in Exhibit A, and which is currently owned by the City of Glasgow, is hereby 2, that the aforementioned real property shall be sold by sealed bids or by any other method authorized by law. Section 3, that Mayor Dick Doty shall be and hereby is authorized and directed to take any and all action necessary in order to carry out the sale as contemplated herein, including but not limited to the execution of deeds and settlement statements.
Having heard the resolution, do I hear a motion to approve? Let's get a motion in a second, please. Have a motion by Councilmember Dickinson, second. Councilmember Neal, any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
On doing the surplus, so whoever buys that can put anything in close to those houses, or is there going to be a restriction when we do that?
There will be some guidelines that they'll have to go by because it is adjacent to that residential area, and then they'll also, as an additional protection and layer, they'll have to go through planning and zoning as well. So the land use would have to be appropriate to that area.
So what is it currently zoned for?
It's either R1 or light industrial. I can't remember, Joe, but
My belief is that it's low density residential. Any other discussion? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? And the motion carries. Next, we have a reappointment of Owen Lambert to the IDEA Board.
On order of the mayor, Owen Lambert is hereby reappointed to the IDEA Board for a 4-year term expiring June 30, 2019, subject to the approval of the council.
Do I have a motion to accept? By Councilmember Witcher, and second? Councilmember Neal. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? And the motion carries. We have another municipal order reappointing Scott Young to the IDEA Board.
On order of the mayor, Scott Young is hereby reappointed to the IDEA Board for a 4-year term, again expiring June 30, 2019, and subject to the approval of the council.
Do I hear a motion to approve? By Councilmember Neal, second. Councilmember Gross. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to KRS 61.810(1)C for discussion of proposed and pending litigation. Motion by Councilmember Neal, second. Councilmember Honeycutt. We are in closed session.
He looks younger than Rick.
I'll entertain a motion to come back into open session. Made by Councilmember Gross and seconded by Councilmember Neal. All in favor signify by saying aye. We are back in open session. I have no more business to bring before the council. I have one announcement to make, and that is that the Community Band's annual concert on the square will be held Thursday, June the 18th at 7 p.m. One other announcement, and that is the Louisville Orchestra will perform their annual concert on the square July the 3rd at 7 p.m. Are there any other announcements? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilmember Dixon, second. Councilmember Neal, all in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you very much.